This is a demonstration of operation of the setup function for SimpleSat Look Down version 1.11. First step in using the setup function is to click on the setup button. A setup window appears. On the right hand side we have the little controls necessary to set your location, which is location 1 as shown by this little yellow rectangle here in the setup window and over here on the main window. You can enter your location as a 4 or 6 character grid locator, and you can also enter in your altitude in feet if you want. It doesn't really matter, but if it makes you feel good, put your altitude in there and then click the Use Grid button. You can also enter in, if you happen to have more accurate information as a latitude-longitude pair, you can enter that information here, and again enter your altitude in feet here if you want, and then click the Use Latitude-Longitude button. If all you're trying to do is get the program going and you want some reasonable numbers, this is really all you have to do. If you plan on using location 2, you can enter the location 2 information over here the same way. The rotor control checkbox down here is discussed in the rotor setup video. Over on the left hand side of the setup window we have the controls for controlling the satellite groups that are displayed in the main window. Satellites from a pool of satellites are organized into groups. We're currently showing the amateur radio group, and this box has a list of the satellites that are in that group. If we want to add a satellite to that group, we can pick one from over here, and this box contains all the satellites that have been downloaded from the source that's displayed up here. And the currently selected source is the AMSAT NASA Bear list, which is an excellent list, has a variety of satellites, and is all most people would need. If you want to add a satellite, click on its name over here. If you want to add another one, click on it. You'll notice that both of these lists are maintained in alphabetical order. This is a big help in finding satellites and so on. If you want to delete a satellite from a group, click on it over here in the Satellites and Group box. That's all there is to it. If you want to rename a group, notice we're currently working on the amateur radio group. That group name is repeated down here in the group name text box. You can edit it in the normal way. So we'll give it a little different name and then click on the Update Group Name button, and the name has been changed. You can work on any group, and you can change groups by clicking on this little box, and you can see we currently have 3 groups set up: ham radio sats, weather, which we can see here, and Intelsat, which we can see down here. So you edit these groups the same way. Click over here to add satellites to the group. Click over here to delete them from the group. If you wish to create a new group, go over here, and you probably have noticed there are a bunch of groups down here that are labeled as empty. The only groups that will appear in the main window are groups that actually have satellites in them. So I called or named the lists that don't have satellites in them empty, just to keep things simple. You don't have to do that. So to create a new group, We just pick one of these, put a name in for it, click on the Update Group Name button, and now notice since there are no satellites in this group, even though it's not labeled empty, it will not show up in the main menu. We could add a few satellites to it from over here, and you're good to go. So here's our ham radio sats, and here's the group that we just created. Now, this should be enough for 99% of users. However, if you want more, if you like experimenting, or if there's a satellite that's not on this list that you really need, there's some other things that you can do. One is you can change the web data source. Now, currently we're looking at the AMSAT NASA Bear list. By default, the program is also set up to use satellites from the amateur list on Celestrak. I think their names are sort of strange, but that's okay. So now we're drawing on satellites from this group. Now, you can, of course, put a satellite from any one of these web sources into any of these groups. There's no need to, just put Celestrak satellites in one group. That wouldn't make any sense. You might want to do it if you just wanted to keep things straight. But I think the Celestrak names are strange enough and easily identifiable enough so that that's not necessary. So if you wanted to add a satellite from the Celestrak group, you just click on it. If you wanted to add VO52, just click on that. If you wanted to go back and add something from this group, go ahead. You might have noticed there's also an entry here for manual sat data. This is a list of satellites that have been added manually. Now, the procedure for doing this, and again, most people wouldn't have to do it, and it's fairly complicated, and unless you really know what you're doing, I would strongly suggest just don't even fool with it. But you might want to have a satellite that isn't available from the web sources, so you can enter it in manually. Sometimes this is necessary when satellites are first launched and the satellite data may not be readily available. And again, the procedure for outlining this is described on the help page. You can add these or satellites from this group the same as any other group. If you haven't manually added any satellites, this option will not show up. Now you might notice I put parentheses around the satellites that I entered manually. I do this just to help keep track. So if, for example, we added this one, when I look through this list, I can see that this is one that I entered manually. The reason for keeping those straight is the fact that since you entered them manually, there's no automatic update of these when you download new data from the web. So I think that's it. Again, for most people, when you bring this up, it's using the NASA Bear list, which is certainly enough for almost everybody. You can create new groups. Theoretically, you can put as many satellites in a group as you want. I wouldn't recommend it. There's really no need. But, if you keep a smaller number of satellites in each group, it's easier to keep track of things. I think I set up 20 groups or the possibility of 20 groups here. If that's not enough for you, let me know and I'll show you how you can, in just a couple seconds, add more. So I think that's it. I'll say 73s, good luck and have fun from W9KE.